Welcome back to the Blindsiders. I am Ben here with Dylan and Brian to talk about a special 2-hour long Blood Moon episode of Survivor 50. It was 2 hours with a little intermission in the middle. I'm
talking about that. There's great synergy between The Apprentice and Survivor here.
Yeah, Mark Burnett is finally getting his crossover night on television.
Yeah.
We have 3 players eliminated. I finally lost players from my team by vote out means, and we had the number one player for me off the board in Genevieve, and so we have a lot to talk about here. 3 tribal councils. We have to talk about the twist, kind of preview the layout of the game going forward into the top 14. Where do we want to start?
Ooh, lots happened last night.
Yeah, a lot happened. It was a blood moon. It was kind of like the bloodbath in, Catching Fire, the Hunger Games, where we're losing tons of people immediately once we got this big group together. I think this is just really the epitome of the new era of Survivor. We've been harping on these shortcomings of the twists for a long time, and now this is just like a really, really brutal reminder of 3 people playing otherwise pretty solid games getting sniped because they picked the wrong rock out of a bag. And that's just modern Survivor now.
Yeah, it's something we've been talking about now for 10 seasons or 9 seasons, 10 seasons.
At least since 42, we've been like really against it, I feel like.
I think they owe a lot to this cast and the production and editing team, I guess, mainly the editing and the cast, for how much they've carried this season and have allowed me to look past just the stupid things that they continue to do. For the most part, I think this was like a fantastic episode of Survivor. I think that outside of the Blood Moon twist, and what it represents, and when you have somebody who is returning and playing after 15 years and the entire time they don't even get to cast a vote. It's just, it is a really, really bad way for this game to be played. Viewers don't like it. I'm assuming players are not going to like it. From what we've gathered, there are players who don't really want to ever play again after this season for probably good reasons. So there's a lot of unfortunate stuff like that too. I think we saw a lot of great stuff for Survivor tonight also. But I don't get it. I don't get why they continue to try to do this. We all suspected it. We all knew it was going to be something like this, a triple tribal, something along those lines, something we probably did not like. And I think it's pretty bad when you go into an episode knowing there's a twist and just automatically assume it's something you're not going to like. That stinks. But overall, I think it was a very good episode. It was Survivor. I really do.
Yeah, for new era Survivor, great. Not the classic Survivor, but you know what? At least I worked myself up into convincing myself that there's going to be eliminations via challenge. So when that wasn't the case, I was like, oh, it's not so bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about this last week, kind of previewing our expectation of what this twist was likely to look like. And it was kind of basically what I expected coming in. And the reasons that I outlined why I wasn't going to be a fan of it last week are easily the same. Nothing changed in my mind. And it's the same criticism that we've had about the split tribals they've done in the past and the new era. They've tried to play this up. Jeff, tried to make this seem like it was some huge new twist they were doing that was, game breaking or some historic moment. When realistically, it's exactly the same kind of split tribal they've been doing for the entire new era. It's just they did it with 3 tribes instead of 2.
I think you had, like I said, I mentioned Colby. You had Colby coming back after 15 years in his very first tribal that he finally has. How many days in were they? 11, 12, 13, something like
12,
that?
12, I think. Yeah.
His very first tribal, he still doesn't have a vote. He's beat to hell. And, seems like the consensus was he was going to be medevaced, and I don't know if he necessarily. I don't know if they told him they were sending him home. to give him a proper send off, or if he asked for that. It seemed like, based on what we got in Tribal and kind of some of the exit interview stuff that Colby has done, it seems like he knew he was leaving the game, and I think maybe he asked them to send him along his way. Regardless, him not having a vote, I've said it before, the number one thing that should be consistent in this game and a guarantee is that you have your vote no matter what. It's kind of like it's really your last ditch chance. And also the shot in the dark. You talk about shot in the dark being literally that, like your last chance to do something. I was screaming at the TV for Coach to play a shot in the dark. I guess that's why I think maybe there was some sort of like agreement or understanding heading into that Tribal that Colby was going home. That's at least my opinion. But I even think on the other side too, where you have, I think the only actual pure Tribal we got where it felt very straightforward. And like, when you look at the history of things, it is what it is in terms of, splitting to these three when you're at like the faux merge. But I think the only actual true real Tribal we got was the vote out of Camilla on that side, because that seemed all like that's the way the cards fell with all this. I think when you go to look at like a player like Genevieve in her time there had found two idols, who is just like, we all agree Genevieve is the most unlucky Survivor player ever. Like, what has happened on this season for her is literally a crime. It should be a crime. And Genevieve is the player that says that she's done with Survivor. I didn't read the actual full quote, but she's done with Survivor. This is the last time she's playing unless she can play again with her husband on Blood versus Water. Finding two idols and constantly being stuck with, it's almost like with Aubrey, it's almost like the show was manufacturing for her to be voted out here. That's really what it feels like. And the fact that we don't see the rock draws anymore, like, I have a hard time not imagining this Aubrey thing was like manufactured to like be Genevieve's downfall almost, like the way that the season shaped up. I got the tinfoil hat on now. Now that Coach is in danger, like, anything is going to go for me now. The next week of my life is going to be just I'm going to be scanning every scene of that preview for next week to see like if I think that Coach is actually going to go home or not, because I am scared. I am very scared right now.
I feel like if it was, I don't know, if it was like a manufactured thing, like, wouldn't it be more entertaining for her shot in the dark to hit and then Joe goes and they can keep this kind of narrative rolling? Like, that felt like it would have been a more fun kind of outcome in terms of the television product.
I think it was manufactured in the sense of keeping them together. Like, I think, what was that, 3 straight times they were kept together? Is that what it was? Three straight, right? 3 straight tribes that they were kept together. I mean, shout out Aubrey. I think we're seeing Aubrey get a little bit of life back in her again. And I think kind of like what's going on there. There are a lot of highlights from this episode from players that we'll talk about. That I think some players had very, very good episodes. I think other players, their game, like Coach, I'm very nervous for Coach and where he can go from here. But there were players that really shined in this episode. And I wouldn't put Aubrey in like the top 4 or 5 of players that shine here, but I think that Aubrey is starting to come about. I don't know if they're trying to shape up like an Aubrey sort of like real like dug out from the grave all the way back to winning. Like, I don't know if that's the story we're getting up with Aubrey, but
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but I think something's got to give with Aubrey, and I don't know if it was the Genevieve storyline. Like, I don't know if that really was like we had that drama leading up to this, and now Aubrey's just going to kind of be in the backseat the rest of the season. I hope not.
I have like 6-ish people on my list of who I think can win at this point, and Aubrey is not one of the 6. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, I mean, for me, looking at Aubrey's story this episode, this should have been her like big moment, but so much of the strategy was filtered through Christian and Rick, and it feels like Aubrey is just kind of being set up as like a piece for Christian and Rick to use in their like arsenal, as opposed to like an actual person in the game with agency. I don't know. Like, her entire storyline through 6 episodes has been about Genevieve, and like Genevieve getting voted out by her now didn't even feel like it was like centered around Aubrey as a decision maker. She was just kind of felt like an appendage. So that to me is like very, like, if we're doing edit reading, that to me is indicative. I don't think she's winning. I think she probably goes far, and it's probably like going to be a key part in this like majority alliance is likely to form, but I don't think she's winning.
What do you think her reaction was to when after Genevieve left and it cut to Aubrey and she like kind of like whispered under her, she whispered like fuck, like was she talking about like the relief of not playing the idol and making it through that? Was she talking about feeling bad about the Genevieve situation, or was she realizing like maybe once again now we're diving into like if we have any psychiatrists or
Yeah, we're doing psychoanalysis here.
any sort of like FBI profilers that can figure this out, or was it more so realizing like, oh, I've been so consumed with just wanting to get Genevieve out, now I don't really know where to go from here. I couldn't tell really if it was one of the two. It was one that she was just relieved to get through the tribal and not play the idol, or if it was because she felt bad about the Genevieve thing and her giving her a jacket. I guess it could be both. I just wasn't sure how to read that because they made a point of cutting and showing Christian very upset that she did not play the idol, or I think that he was upset of her not playing the idol.
Yeah, I think that it probably was a relief that Genevieve went for Aubrey. I mean, it was very clear from the beginning that they were gunning for one another. And then there was 12 days of just like sitting on that and not like having it actually come to a head. And then it did finally come to a head and Aubrey emerged victorious and didn't have to play her idol. I'm sure it was like really relieving, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's so much that was kind of hidden from us in terms of like this dynamic. Like I feel like we only kind of really scratched the surface of like what exactly was going on here and like where it kind of started. Like it really felt like that first kind of scene that we saw of them in episode 1 didn't feel like the beginning of the story. Like it felt like we kind of like started on like chapter like 2 or 3 and we like
there's a reason they were so cagey with each other.
Which I'm confused why that's the case.
That's why I am very big. I know I talk about Tyson's podcast a lot. They're very big on you need to have pre-games of returning player season, especially these days, be included in what is talked about within these confessionals and things like that, because it adds so much context to what is going on in the show for that exact reason. Yeah. Like, because I think when we first watched the first episode and I thought it was very strange how much maybe they don't like each other, but how much Aubrey really didn't seem to like Genevieve. And like, I think that I don't know why this day and age they refuse to not want to include that. It's like it's common knowledge at this point that the pre-gaming happens between all of them. Tyson talks about Q was calling every single person all the time, kept commenting on Stephanie's posts and all that. Like people and like Sandra before, I think Heroes versus Villains or Winners at War, like was calling everybody every day to talk strategy and stuff. Like if it actually does affect the game, something that needs to be discussed when in the context of the game while it's being played. I think if we had the backstory to whatever was going on with Aubrey and Genevieve before, I think it would add emotional weight to the whole thing also. Like I think you make a great point, Ben, that I didn't really necessarily consider too, is that this really doesn't come off as a huge win for Aubrey. It, like you said, this came off more so that it was driven by Christian and it was driven by Devins, and that Aubrey just happened to be that piece. And Genevieve, unfortunately, just happened to be the one that was on that team that they wanted to get out. I think / hope that Aubrey realizes that maybe she has a better chance with the old school alliance, the old school and honor integrity alliance, because numbers wise, they're kind of screwed. I think maybe hopefully that's their way out, is that Aubrey and maybe even Sari are the two that are going to kind of like flip and balance in between those two. Because it does feel like that potentially we're kind of going into a very lopsided merge, which typically when that happens, we don't always have the best post-merge seasons. So I am nervous about that, but I don't know. Maybe that is the outcome of this for Aubrey, is that she realizes that she needs to be someone that plays both sides rather than favoring just going on this side, because I have a hard time imagining Aubrey is going to be the vocal leader of that kind of like new era force group, especially when you have somebody like D who is kind of really driving every vote that she's been involved in. Aubrey is kind of like the enigma of this entire season that we've been trying to figure out from the very beginning of what's going on with her. Because she also just seems miserable. She seems like generally miserable to be on that island.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Another thing that came out of this tribal council for me that I was very surprised by was Joe. I mean, I guess this is just like indicative of how Joe plays the game and that he's not really like thinking at that level, but it feels like, the obvious thing for Joe to have done here was to throw a vote on Rick in case the shot in the dark hit. Because, like, it is like saving face with people that you're probably not planning on working with in the next round, anyways. Really worth like putting your life at like on the line at a 1 in 6 chance. Really surprised me that it was a 4-0 vote here, because assuming that the shot in the dark does hit for Genevieve, like Joe's just going to go out. So really surprising there. And then as well, I think it was surprising. I guess Rick probably made the correct read that Joe wasn't like going to put a vote on him, because then the defensive play from Rick would then be to put a vote on Joe as well and make it a 2-1. So yeah, just like a lot of like weird kind of play here, where everyone was just like, yeah, we're just going to hope it doesn't hit,
Yeah, I think that, Ben, you're totally right, but no way does Joe think about Survivor like that.
Yeah.
There's just no way. So I'm not surprised this is what Joe did. I think that, he's lucky he got through it. And I do want to talk a little bit about, where do we think these lines, we got a lot of talk about it, line in the sand. These tribals are about drawing lines in the sand, like most merge ones are. And it's kind of like, on one hand, Genevieve and Colby got taken out, and on the other, Camilla got taken out. And I feel like they were victims of this line that's being drawn between. I just want to see, where do you guys think each player is on this side,
I think for me, it's pretty clear. It's like Coach Steph, Jonathan, Joe, and Chrissy as a 5 on one side, and then all of the other 9 on the other side. Which is why we can talk about Jonathan's decision here. I think Jonathan made a horrible decision, but we can get through this. I've seen a lot of people praising Jonathan, and I thought that Jonathan had like a strong edit, episode from an edit perspective, and it definitely felt like the show was portraying it as him making like a bold move for himself. But I don't think he made the right call at all, even if he had a pregame alliance with these people.
Interesting. I very much disagree. I think if he had gone with Camilla, and I think that we saw in the preview, he gone with Camilla, who's somebody who just blindsided and voted against him in the previous tribal that they were in together, rather than take Chrissy, who he's been with, Chrissy, who he has not been with Chrissy. He made a decent relationship with Coach right off the bat. We've always said that Coach and Jonathan being like that honor and integrity along with Joe, that made the most sense. I think I think going with the new era, when he himself, the new era players actively hate Jonathan online. Like, I think that you have to add in kind of like the meta outside the game context. I think that Jonathan gets treated like absolute crap from a lot of the new era players, and like I it all kind of stems back to season 42, and kind of like season 42 got very into the weeds of kind of like some racial issues with Survivor and things that were going on there. And like, I think Jonathan took a lot of backlash, whether some of the things he said were stupid or not, or like he took a lot of backlash from that season. I think that he's very much not super liked among new era players, is my opinion based on the things I've seen, things I see people say. So I don't know why he would feel compelled to go. I mean, you saw Camilla's reaction right away, which I love, people being genuine and being mad at being blindsided and tribal. So I'm very excited about that. Sad to see Camilla go, but I think Jonathan made 100% the right decision. I think if you keep Camilla in this game, Jonathan is going to be one of the first people that new era alliance is going to want to vote out. I think he has a much better chance sticking with Coach, sticking with Joe, with Steph, and Chrissy. I think he has a way better chance with that, even if the numbers aren't on their side, because at least there he is more than just the big dumb guy with muscles. I think that he showed that he's actually trying to figure things out socially and strategically in this game and not just be, the big guy that's going to win the immunity challenges. And I think that voting on Camilo was 100% the right choice for him.
All right, Brian, you got to break the tie. What do you think?
So I think that Jonathan definitely had a pregame alliance with the old school people. So I do think on the one hand, I get what you're saying, Ben, where maybe he could have ingratiated himself to the new schoolers, but on the other hand, it's not like he knows Colby and Genevieve are getting voted off, so he just doesn't realize how necessarily bad it is. I mean, you probably could have had a good inclination.
Yes. We saw the look, I'm sorry. We saw the tribe situations, and we pretty much immediately said that Colby and Genevieve were going. So if he can't figure that out, I think that's him not being aware of what's going on.
That's fair. I don't think that him turning on the old school alliance would have bought him that much time in the new school alliance. I think he would have just been maybe the last old school person to get voted off. So maybe he's thinking like, hey, maybe I can at least like not make it a 3 for 3 of my alliance getting voted off, and we'll have maybe a chance. And I do think that Chrissy is a really competent player. She almost won. Some say she should have won. I'd say she should have won. That's why I picked her on my team. And if you're going into a tribal where Camilla just blindsided you and got rid of Charlie, someone who you thought could potentially be in your alliance or your bridge, I can't really see why you would be like, yeah, well, she cut out Charlie, she'll keep me, I think it's like, well, this is my shot, I'm taking it, and we'll see where the chips fall.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see where any of these 5 go from here.
I
don't know. No, I just don't think that there's anywhere for them to go. I think that I would be very surprised if the next boot is not one of the 5 of them, and it's probably not going to be coach. So it's probably going to be between Joe, Steph, Chrissy, and Jonathan. And so he just kind of put himself into a 25% chance of being the next person voted off.
I think that they all have more knowledge than obviously we see in confessionals and stuff like that. Like a lot of stuff gets left on the editing room floor. Like I think that Jonathan is smart enough to understand I think that he knows if he goes with the majority of the new era players, I just think that he knows that he's going to get voted out probably earlier there than he would be with he could be the first one to go next week. And we're sitting here saying, did he make the right decision to go after Camilla to put a target on his back with them? But I think in the end, he's such a hulking threat for physical immunity where he was probably going to be the number 1 target no matter what coming out of, or one of them coming out of when we hit the actual merge. And I know people like to say now that being physically dominant post merge really doesn't matter as much anymore. But I think when you get down to, final 10, final 9, and you have somebody there like Jonathan who can really kind of how many times have we seen a strong alliance of 2, 3, or 4 towards the end that are forced to get broken up because somebody wins an immunity challenge when it mattered most? And I know that can happen with anybody. It could happen with puzzles. It could be Aubrey winning that immunity challenge when it matters most. But Jonathan is obviously the biggest threat overall if there's anything physical. And I just think that he knows his place with the old school players is just a much better standing than it would be with the new school players. And I think I feel like if I was in Jonathan's shoes too, I would vote out Camilla 100%. And also Camilla is a dangerous player. Camilla was a dangerous player. People know this. People just saw her play. And I think that when you see the things like the Charlie vote out, and Rick Devens obviously was on the wrong side of that too, even though he's aligned with like Suri and Christian, where I think that Rick is also in a weird spot too, where I believe he's fully with Christian. But I think that when they go back and kind of talk about that vote after of being like, yeah, Camilla and D and Suri completely blindsided Charlie. I think that kind of not alleviates the threat on Jonathan, but I just don't think I guess I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. I don't think that Jonathan voting out Camilla paints a bigger target on his back than he already would have had. And I think that he is only helping that alliance that he went into the game with by getting rid of her. Even though Camilla claimed to be a huge Coach fan, I don't think that Camilla was going to work with Coach. Who knows? Maybe she would have. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think for me it's about pinning a target on his back. I think it's more just like putting himself on the wrong side of the line in the sand. Because like, I agree that this was the right move if the numbers were closer and like maybe they could have flipped one or two people, but like that kind of group is in a position where they have to flip 3 people to like, win the vote for the next round or two. And I just don't see that happening based off of like kind of the structure of the players right now. So yeah, I just don't, I think that he's like probably 50-50 to be going out in the next 2 or 3 rounds, in my opinion, because of this move. Whereas if he had made the other move, it would have been kind of like more of a rattier, safer play that put him at least in a position where he could have potentially been like a fulcrum, important extra vote in terms of like once that side finally schisms and goes after each other. Because like there's going to be a Cold War. There's like an inevitable Cold War that's going to start brewing between like the Christian Devens Aubrey kind of group and the Suri Ozzy Rizzo kind of group with D maybe, Tiffany over here, Emily kind of in a decent spot in the middle of everything. Like that kind of group eventually 2 or 3 votes down the road is going to schism. And Jonathan could have positioned himself really well with Camilla there as well to potentially, swing the momentum maybe towards the Suri side. And then like he has like a room to move in that group. Like, is it possible he ends up maybe out in 6th or 7th place? Maybe, but like that gives him like 6 extra rounds of runway to do something. Whereas now he's probably one of the more likely immediate targets.
But I think we're also operating under the assumption that we're splitting the tribe right down the middle. Like I know you said we're drawing those lines. I'm not fully convinced that we're actually not splitting into like 3 different factions, really. I guess we'll say D is the leader of one side. You got Christian on the other side, and then I'd say Coach. They don't think that Coach is the leader. I felt like the edit we got was very obvious. Coach was like kind of the leader of these old school players, at least from what we saw. So I think when you look at the 3 factions of like D, Coach, Christian, and Christian obviously has Devens, Emily, seemingly Ozzy now, and then you assume that D has Tiffany, D has, I guess we can say Rizzo is kind of throwing in there with D if you're assuming that Suri is kind of in that D faction than everybody else we talked about on our side. So I feel like more so what you said, I really like you saying like the Cold War. I feel like it all is going to come down, and we've seen like these voting blocks happen before, and it's, if anything, it's more and more common sort of in the newer era, but it became super common obviously in the middle to older new age seasons or new school seasons. Voting blocks, like if we have some of these factions that are voting just to get through the day to get to the next vote, I think that can be good for the old school players, because I don't think that, and I could be totally wrong, we could be sitting here next week and it's very obvious that the D faction and the Christian faction are just going to keep working together for the rest of this. But I'm not totally convinced that it's just going to be that split right down the middle. It probably will be. That probably makes the most sense to get further in the game. I'm just not convinced that is what's actually going to happen. And we have it seems like Devens and Jonathan liked each other. So maybe that's a different thing too. If Devens and Jonathan realize, hey, we have Sari, we have D, who is playing a fantastic game to this point, kind of leading things over here. Like, that's a little bit more dangerous to us than having Jonathan and Coach and Stephanie left in the game. Let's get rid of D and Sari first. I think like that's what we have to see play out. We obviously saw in the preview, though, it's very much D versus Jonathan, which is what we saw would seem like the big conflict next week.
Yeah, I will see. I think that at Final 14, we're looking at like who's an easy consensus boot, and I'm looking at like a Joe or a Jonathan right now. That's like what that would be for me. I have to make a prediction. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Brian?
I don't know if Jonathan could have bought goodwill. I don't know. I think it really depends on if D was there instead of Camilla. Maybe he goes with it because it seems like they were at least open to working with one another again. But yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know if Jonathan had any way to break into this new school alliance. And, you know, I think he's always going to be a giant target just because of who he is, and how, you know, scary he is in immunity challenges. So I guess we'll see. On the other hand, is like Jonathan that good at Survivor? Like, are you afraid of Jonathan in the way that you might be afraid of these other 13 players? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, Jonathan's not very great in individual immunities. You know, even like look at the one to last night, right? Like he was one of the first people out because it was like
well, that challenge especially, he was never gonna.
Yeah, but like those are the kind of individual immunities that we get in the new era a lot of times. It's like a very like kind of endurance balance kind of stuff, puzzles even. Like a lot of that stuff is like not really up his alley. Like he's definitely more of a like tribal immunity, you know, get through like, you know, kind of muscle through this obstacle course and then like, you know, play a throwing kind of circus game at the end, right? Like he's more like that kind of a skill set, as opposed to like, I'd say the new era individual immunities are not really tailored towards his body type, historically.
So I'm looking at, he won one immunity. It was uncomfortably numb, which I think is that, the one that you're like,
it's the Christian Memorial Challenge, you know.
Yeah, which I was actually surprised he won that because that didn't seem like a challenge that would have been made for him either.
Yeah, and you even think of like Get a Grip, right? Which is like, you know, a challenge that is kind of very strength heavy. It's also balanced around body weight, and I don't know how his strength to weight ratio compares to other players on this cast. So we'll see. I don't think he's a big threat at all. I think that my fear for him is that he would be like a very easy kind of consensus boot to get through these like 14, because like we literally have 14 people left, right? Like if we were at like 11, like maybe he would be kind of able to sneak through a little bit more. But like especially these large merges, the early boots are very frequently like kind of consensus boots that people just are trying to want to like yada yada over a couple of rounds before they start actually playing the game. And that just feels like a really easy spot for him or somebody like a Joe to fall into right now.
Right.
I have a hard time seeing Jonathan win the game. I just think that Jonathan, and it's kind of been the theme of the season. Everybody wants to improve themselves and prove what they did the previous times. Genevieve really almost literally did not get the opportunity to because the game was just taken away from her. But I think like I am still in this episode. I consider if we have like a MVPs for this episode, I'd probably give Jonathan like a silver or bronze medal for what he did in this episode. I feel like that it's just I feel like we didn't see the gears turning for Jonathan like this in season 42, where he like his confessionals, he was saying a lot of the right things, and I think that regardless of whether you think the Camilla vote out was right or not, I think the way that he navigated that before tribal was well done for Jonathan. So he did impress me in this episode. Chrissy impressed me more, and I would like to talk about Chrissy a lot more. But Jonathan did impress me.
Yeah, no, like it for like a strategy for this episode alone. I mean, like there was a lot of there wasn't a ton of like really complicated strategy going on. Like there was some like kind of interesting social maneuvering, especially when they were all on the same beach together and we got the scene of them, everyone kind of sharing information and secrets with each other. But like, you know, we had two people basically not play the game at all. And then we had three tribal councils, and like 2.5 of them were extremely straightforward with like not a lot of like real social or strategic maneuvering required for them. So yeah, I think it was an easy episode for him to kind of stand out.
See, I don't like how you said that. I feel like that diminishes giving Jonathan his props. I'm just going to still say
I thought that a lot of the stuff he was saying was good in terms of like you said in his confessionals, like the I have to honor integrity isn't going to win the game. Like I have to make moves. I think making a move at the final 17 is not how you win Survivor, as we saw, I guess, with Camilla last week with the move against Charlie, right? Like that's good to form an alliance and like get a threat out, but like nobody's going to vote for you to win because of something that you did at the final 17. Like that's just how it is. So it's much better to kind of set yourself up socially into a solid position.
You are right. And also when these events happen, these blood moon, these split up of the faux merges, like I think a lot of it is can I survive past this and make the actual merge so I can be on tribal council if I don't. So yeah, no, I definitely I get what you're saying. I did think Chrissy came alive a little bit in this episode. Obviously, a lot of pushback about edits for females. Tiffany, we got a lot of Tiffany in this episode. Being Tiffany, not a whole lot of strategic gameplay from Tiffany, but we saw Tiffany being fun and funny. That was great. Chrissy got much more airtime. Probably, I think they both probably got more confessional and airtime in this episode than they had pretty much probably the entire season up to this point. Chrissy flipping through this, getting Jonathan. I think that this is the Chrissy that we've wanted to see this entire season, not kind of just be like that, the lonely and angry lady on the beach that we've gotten to this point. So I am very happy that this Chrissy's here. I'm very happy that Chrissy is staying in this game so we can kind of see her start to show why we think that she should have won her initial season. So I am very happy about that. I think that she got a very favorable edit, and I think that the things we saw with her talking to Jonathan, who was the other person on that? Was it Steph, right? Steph was the other person. I think that what we got from her and kind of seeing her come to life and fight for her life, I think that was great. And I think the transition from her talking to Camilla and just being like, please don't make me cry, or whatever she said, I want to go to my own terms, or whatever she said, kind of building up that maybe she'll play the shot in the dark. I think that she navigated this very, very well. I'm very surprised that Chrissy was here after we saw the initial tribe layout. So I am pleased about that. I hope that we get more of this Chrissy, and that kind of wasn't just her that will be the highlight of her season 50 tape. I hope we get more of that.
Yeah, I think finally she's getting shown, which is great. I do wonder if maybe the editors are editing as we go along, and they heard the backlash, because this has to be like the first confessional from Chrissy in like 4 episodes, right? Like,
I mean, it wouldn't like surprise me, I guess, given the content we got in this episode, but I don't think they are. I think it's probably just a coincidence.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I'm happy. Obviously, she's on my team. I'm happy to see her play. I thought, she played well. I liked her playing possum and pretending to give up and then coming alive. That was very fun. So it'll be interesting to see if she can continue to kind of wriggle her way out of a bad spot going down here.
Yes, I'm hopeful. I think that that she kind of has, at the very least, the instincts to maybe kind of survive what's coming up next. I think that she is probably past the point where people are going to like target her for like the reasons that she has been being targeted, which is just kind of like kind of, you know, social awkwardness, or like people like seeing her as kind of like an easy pile on. I think she's kind of maybe crossed that boundary now. And like, if she does kind of survive the next like couple of votes, I think that she could potentially be like a power broker. So we'll see.
I kind of want to save the final tribal for maybe like one of the last things we talk about. Applebee's is not that good the way it is talked about. I know, like did Applebee's on that beach?
Whoa. What if you want to sponsor us, Dylan? We can't be slandering beloved chain restaurants.
Potatoes. I would say above average for a chain restaurant.
I think the amount of time we spent on Jeff describing food and just like the way he passionately talked about it, and I know it's essentially a paid advertiser, right? You know, Applebee's has become part of New Era Survivor lore to this point. Applebee's not that good. I would eat the hell out of what they showed me on that island, especially after 12 days of not eating. But I think we need to relax with this Applebee's propaganda.
Bacon burger, that sounded pretty great after not eating for a while, right?
Yeah, you end up like was it to Joe from Korong, you know?
Yeah, right.
He ate so much meat, he literally just had to go. He had to go bye-byes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, yeah, he did. You know what? Applebee's got their money's worth for this, I think. I'm a Chili's guy. If I'm gonna eat at a chain restaurant, it's gonna be Chili's. So I don't have any disdain for Applebee's, certainly, but I don't have tons. I'm no Liz Wilcox. Let's put it that way. But I do want to try their shark scorpion bowl thing. That looks pretty refreshing.
The shark attack, whatever it's called. What's up, Daryl? Daryl back. The only other thing I really want to talk about, I guess, before we get to that other tribe, Ozzy, Rizzo, really didn't get a whole lot of them in this episode. Obviously, I think both are. Rizzo especially has impressed me a lot. Very popular to hate Rizzo online right now. People hate him. Like this, once again, Survivor fandom is very, very weird. I feel like Rizzo, and a lot of times, should be a player that's very celebrated, and I think that he's playing a surprisingly maybe top 5 game.
Rizzo
right now
is too much like the average Survivor super fan, and many Survivor super fans don't really like to have like
self-hating
their mirror shown to them, you know.
Which if Rizzo, I think Rizzo, if you're talking about super fans, has been by far the coolest like super fan we've had in the game in terms of like actual gameplay and what he does, because it was so tiring those early 40s seasons of like everybody being a super fan and everybody trying to like meta play the game, and everybody talking about how at home they did this challenge and this challenge, and they knew which challenges we were getting. They the whole hourglass era is, I feel like, what those first 2, 3, 4 seasons of the 40s should be called, because I hated that super fan. It was tired. It was boring. It was like the same thing. We were getting the same people cast in each season. I think somebody with Rizzo who has like actual personality, even if it is kind of like that brain rot online personality, he's having fun, but he loves the game and wants to play it. And I think that he's playing it very well. I think he should be way more celebrated than he is. And he's just like, he became popular to hate on, which I get. I get that. Those like, what is that current generation? Gen Z?
Zoomers.
They are, some of them are just like, you can't hold a conversation with them. And I get why that's like annoying. Like I said, that whole brain rot kind of like talk. But I think Rizzo needs to really start getting more respect among fandom. I think Rizzo is playing a fantastic game so far. Way better game than I thought he was going to be able to play heading into this season, immediately after playing his own season and becoming in kind of an unknown commodity to everybody else. I am like very, very happy. He's aligned himself with Suri, which we've talked about before. Typically, people who align themselves with Suri make out very, very good in their seasons. And really, it kind of seems like that alone has become its own faction of Ozzy, Suri, Rizzo. I'm just not sure if Ozzy is more committed to the Christian side of that, or if he's more committed to the Suri side of that. But Rizzo has put himself in such a good position. He doesn't seem to be, he has D2. He voted with D last time, so he has D to fall back on. but Suri and him legit seem like they're each other's ones and twos. And I think that the fact that Rizzo has been able to reel in Suri, and it's probably more the other way around of Suri reeling in Rizzo, but the fact that Rizzo and Suri are the kind of like the power duo that not a whole lot of people are kind of even looking at, like that alone is so incredibly impressive by him and by Suri. Like, because they should have huge targets pinned on their backs for two entirely different reasons, and they're navigating this game the way that they are. I think Rizzo needs to get way more respect among people. I think it's become the Nickelback of Survivor conversation to like hate Rizzo and say that he's annoying. Like, I think that he's playing such a good game right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, agree. I think that Rizzo is probably, again, like you said, at the top 3 to 5 for me right now in terms of who I think is likely to win the season. It's just, which is a huge surprise coming in. Like, I was extremely high on Rizzo's game in 49, and I was like very excited to see him come in. But I was definitely like skeptical of whether or not he would be able to kind of like hang here, especially with the unknown quantity situation. But no, yeah, he's definitely playing one of the best games in the season right now by far.
Shout out Brian Wong. Brian Wong, big Rizzo hater.
I like to think we're Rizzo's strongest soldiers on this podcast. We've been pretty high on him from the word go, and he's playing great. So it sucks for everyone who dislikes him because pretty sure he's going to be here for a while.
Which we've been fighting this battle now for an entire year, basically. We've been doing it for 6+ months now of defending Rizzo. Rizzo's a good player. Rizzo is most likely going to be in multiple more Survivor seasons, hopefully, if we have other players come back, if he doesn't win this season. The Riz God is, whether you love it or hate it, is the face of New Era Survivor at this moment. So I think that we need to fall in line and treat him with a little bit more respect. I think you can not like him.
Carolyn. Yeah,
I think Carolyn kind of dethroned herself a little bit. I think that Rizzo. You could not like Rizzo. I think his game needs to be respected a lot more than it is. And I like the whole thing last season was some of the people he was playing with, were they playing dumb? Yes, but that's not his problem that he capitalized on dumb players. That's what you're supposed to do. So. I hope he goes far. I hope he continues to shut the haters up. I really hope Brian Wong's still listening and hasn't just completely given up on our podcast. Our number one fan, Brian Wong. But I think Rizzo is a very good player, and I hope he continues to do this well because I think he's great TV also.
Yeah, a hot take as well for me. I think Ozzy's playing probably the 4th or 5th best game in the season so far as well. I think that the way that he kind of handled the situation last week with Christian, really kind of like taking back a lot of his power there, really reeling in Emily as an ally, both from him and Emily, I think is really impressive. I think Emily, again, somebody that is gets a lot of hate from people that I think is a really underrated player. And now Ozzy is in this kind of fulcrum position as well with Suri and Rizzo on one side, and then the Emily kind of Christian group on the other side, just like extremely well positioned within this kind of likely core majority. And he has an idol, and again, Rizzo also has an idol. Like I would say, like this like Ozzy Rizzo kind of duo that we end up on Exile Island. Definitely, like, would not be surprised if one of them is the winner of the season at this point.
Suri, mix Suri in that, she has the extra vote, right? Is that what she has?
Yep.
She has the extra vote. So you have 2 idols and an extra vote kind of in that little in Suri's threesome relationship. What did she say? It was she's Polly. She's Polly in the game of Survivor. Once again, Suri is like she continues to impress me so much because, like we said, she should be the first player that everybody sees on that island and says, I need to get that person out. I need her out of the game because that's how dangerous she is. Really, the only other player in Survivor that I feel like has that threat level is Parvati. And I think that Parvati would be cast out immediately if we didn't have players that were completely like terrified of her, that knew they need to get rid of her. Suri just has that magical touch where she's able to be so loved and so liked, but yet she is so good at the social aspect of the game that nobody has mentioned Sari's name in like forever. Like nobody's mentioned voting out Sari at all. Like that has not been discussed or anything we've seen since the first episode. So it's just Sari is. I think we'll see how the season plays out. I think that Sari, that conversation where we always go back to the Mount Rushmore of Survivor players. I think like Parvati is obviously like unanimously needs to be on that list. Tony probably unanimously needs to be at that list. And I think that after those two, there's a real discussion. I feel like Sari, whether she wins the season or not, I feel like she needs to be in that discussion. If she wins, I feel like it's not even a discussion at that point. If she wins, she's in that Mount Rushmore. I think she probably pushes Sandra or Boston Rob off that Mount Rushmore. But Sari is just like, she's just so impressive with how she's able to play this game. And after this long of everybody seeing how she does it and her adaptability and kind of like even what we saw in that tribal that we're getting to, that we're going to talk about, her ability to swing the vote her way, even if maybe it happened because Colby was going to be medevac and they wanted to treat him fairly. I think she still got what she wanted in the end. So I'm incredibly blessed to be able to watch a Sari season live and not kind of like have it ripped off of a bootleg version on YouTube with Survivor Australia because it's just been it's been great. I'm a true 100% Sari believer at this point in truther. She really is just fantastic.
Yeah, to be clear, she would knock Boston Rob off the Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame. Not Sandra, who won 2 times.
Let's save that for an off season. That can be an off season episode for us where we just debate Mount Rushmore.
I'm not moving off that position.
Yeah,
I will. I've watched Heroes versus Villains enough where I have my Sandra hot takes now, and it is what it is.
All right.
I don't know. I think for me, I agree with Brian. I think it would be, but it really kind of depends because for me, it would have to be Sari wins the season to even have the conversation. And then I know there's going to be a lot of people that would be like, well, Boston Rob won in 4 tries and it took Sari 5 tries, even if Sari's, overall resume is a lot stronger. Even if you include Australian Survivor, it'd be 6 times but yeah, I don't know. I think like for Sari to come into the season, like preseason, we were basically talking about it like, yeah, Sari's probably going to go deep because she always goes deep, but like she can't win because of X, Y, and Z, right? The primary reason she can't win is like, everyone knows she's a jury threat. It's impossible for her to play a strong game and make it past like the final 6-5-4 votes because he's always going to be targeted as a threat. I actually think this trio of her, Rizzo, and Ozzy puts her into a position where she probably has a pretty good chance of at least making Final 4. So there's I think an opening here for her to actually win the season, which is actually fucking insane, right? Like that has to be talked about, right? Like the idea of coming onto a season like this and winning it when basically nobody in the preseason thought that it was like feasible or possible. I think that's probably more impressive than Boston Rob's win, which is like, I think heavily scrutinized.
I 100% agree. I think love Boston Rob. I love Boston Rob as like an overall personality, even just outside of Survivor. I love Boston Rob. I think that I would, depending on we don't know how the rest of the game will play out, obviously, but I just think like, and I don't know if the discourse back then too was that like it's impossible for Boston Rob to win this season before he ended up winning that season. But I feel like that this is more so we thought Sari was there. I mean, the shit that was talked about Sari by a lot of players that weren't taken to this season too. Like Carolyn, was it Carolyn that made the grandma comment or whatever she said about Sari? They're getting the grandmas out to the island or whatever it was. Like, I think her winning here would be, there's nobody in this game I want to win more than Coach, but I think a Sari win and the fact that we'd be able to witness that and kind of just the impact that would have overall in Survivor history, it's tough not to want to root for that to happen too. It's not like Sari is as some like villain or something like that. It's like Suri is probably one of the most unanimously beloved players in Survivor history. That just would be really, really special. And it would kind of cap off what we saw in this tribal too, of like that celebration of old school Survivor, those old school players kind of like, I think that's the one really cool thing that we're getting in here. And is I think the game gets removed a lot. And we saw in this tribal too, of like, especially with D, D's been very emotional in the season, even from outside the Zach Brown stuff. I think D has probably dealt with a lot of not scrutiny. I think D has probably dealt with a lot of pressure heading into this season. Not only is she playing with a bunch of legends, but she's a winner who's probably going to have who has a serious target on her back. And I think that the way that even players like D have been giving the honor to players like Suri and what we saw here with Colby and even with Coach, I think that's like so cool. I think it is the right kind of like Survivor super fan of, this game has been in our society now for 25 years. And a lot of these people and like you guys that have been following from the very beginning, I just think that the way that they're giving these players their due, I think Colby got totally screwed. Like they took the guy from 15 years, brought him onto the island. His like body got completely destroyed. He didn't even have a vote. And then he had to go home. That sucks. That's not the good way to treat our elders. But I think the way that the other players are kind of being nice to everybody, outside of Jenna, because Jenna had to go home, but Jenna did it to herself. I think it's just been like very, very cool. That's why I like this tribal a lot. If we want to kind of get into to everything that went on in the vote itself and Coach and all that, but I think that this tribal was really nice. I'm glad they saved this for last. I'm glad we kind of got that goodbye to Colby. It's nice. Anyway, long story short, one of my rant of the episode, my apologies. Suri winning would just be great. Fantastic. She's definitely top 5 of the players left that I am rooting to win. But Coach is number 1, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I've long been a Suri fan, so like what was her name on Australian Survivor? Who's
Lisa.
like Lisa. She's like, I want Suri to win more than I want to win.
Yeah.
Like same, so real. And I've talked about it, like being a fan of her for so long, since like 2005 or whatever, when she was on the original season. Her winning the Traitors was a really like cathartic moment. So her winning Survivor would be like even more so,
Yeah. 100%. I mean, look, I'll even throw a little bit early or before the season started. I was like really, bemoaning that I thought that this was going to be like a new era stomp everyone situation, kind of similar to like a Winners at War vibe, where like the more recent winners and Winners at War is kind of threw out everyone in the room before like 25. And that hasn't been the case. We have right now 8 non-new era players and 6 new era players left. 4 out of the 6 pre-HVV players that are still here. It's definitely like a fairly even, and if anything, probably more favored towards like the older / like mid-era players that are the ones kind of like holding the positions together right now. So I'm very very happy that that's the case.
Yeah, Coach was not, impressed by the old school players on Winners at War. And you know what? I think they really came to play. Even Jenna, who went out first, at least she went out swinging.
The funniest moment of the entire episode is when Dee went to talk to Coach. And they're talking about Colby and goes, yeah, that guy sucks. He can't do anything. That was at the point where I wasn't even sure if I should say this joke, what the backlash was. I think the Trump and the Israelis have officially gone too far, interrupting an episode of Survivor. I think that's where we have to finally cap everything off there.
This is where we're drawing the line.
We're going to edit that out there. That's where my line's been drawn. That kind of relieved what was not the Trump thing. That's the part sucked. The Coach joke very much relieved what was a very tense kind of like setup for the rest of the episode. Not only do we have to have that ridiculous break in the middle there, but like the tension that had been sitting with me with leading up to this tribal for coach, because until Colby's foot got brought up again, I thought coach was gone. I thought coach was like, I kept saying he needs to play his shot in the dark. Like, he needs to play his shot in the dark. He needs to do it. But that joke was hilarious. It was like the perfect edit, perfect coach. It was that was very, very funny.
Yeah, I think I guess it really goes to show the perception versus what we're getting, where people thought that Colby was the bigger leader of that. One thing I am surprised about, we've heard a lot about Colby's injuries here, which seemed bad. He hyperextended his toes, I guess, tore a ligament, and then punctured his foot, which caused an infection. So I don't know if Colby was a little bit like, hey, if it's got to be one of us, it's okay if it's me, because I don't know if he was long for the game otherwise, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that definitely for me softens it a little bit, because like, this is going to now be 2 for 2 for the season of people who lost their votes immediately going home at the first opportunity on the tribal where they don't have a vote, which is not that uncommon in the new era. It's happened quite a lot, in fact, which is why a part of why losing your vote is stupid. Because
I made a whole video about it. You can check it out on the Blindsiders YouTube channel.
Yeah, which is it creates very boring scenarios where it's very obvious it's the person who lost their vote went home. Not even from a fairness perspective, it just creates boring gameplay. But I do think the vote, him having lost his vote, probably played a very little role in
Shout
this
out
stuff.
Justin, our pizza boy.
Yes, Justin, Bianca. Like, there's so many examples you can just pull out, right? It was Kevin, was that the name? I can't remember his name, but there's examples. There's many examples in the new era of people having lost their vote, and that being a significant reason why them or a very close ally went home. But yeah, I mean, here I think it may have like almost intrinsically led to this being a more compelling exit for Colby, because them not having to worry about him playing the shot in the dark meant that they could just basically be open with him and be like, yeah, you're going home, and then talk openly about his legacy as he was, kind of scooted out the door.
Which I did actually appreciate it, because it allowed Colby to kind of talk through his Survivor experience as a whole, which I thought was a really nice way to send him off into the sunset, I
think he needed it. I think he really needed it after All Stars and Heroes versus Villains. I think he needed this. I think that's what he said. He came into this game with a whole different set of expectations for what he wanted from himself. I think that's great. I wish we got a Colby that was a little bit more of a threat, but I think that some of these players have earned their right to be able to come back if they wanted to kind of get this experience out of it. And I don't think it's like disrupt the season at all. I think it added like a really great entertainment value to it. It's just very, very unfortunate that Jeff and production are just so insistent on continuing. Like, even just breaking down to the mini tribes is one thing at the faux merge, but just like the taking away of votes. I think the quote was like, Colby Donaldson had his vote taken away because he was bad at a game of Jenga. Like, that's like, that is, it's just, it's not going away. Apparently it's something it's part of the game. Don't know why. No one viewership wise seems to like it at all. Sucks. I feel like the Blood Moon idea could have been great. And I think if you had a massive tribal, 17 people voting, top 3 votes go home, 3 people safe, you got 2 people over at Exile who are safe, which I like that twist too. I like the Exile portion of this, having 2 people completely removed from the game and safe. I think you just had a huge tribe, 17 people voting, top 3 go home. You have 3 with immunity, right? That comes down to what? That is, or I guess 2 people at Exile. So that brings us down to 15. So you have 15 people voting, 3 with immunity. So you have 12 people potentially going home. That is like a kind of like what a first merge vote is anyway. That could have been really great and exciting and would have added strategic intervention into the game of like, oh, do we place 3 votes here? Do we place 3 votes here? Do we put 2 votes on this person and hope that the other tribe does something similar? It could have added a lot more of a nuance and a fun thing to this episode than the lose a vote and kind of going to 3 separate tribals. But it literally feels like we're just talking into the void at this point in production, and Jeff do not care.
Yeah, he's not listening to us. We've been complaining about it for years. Jeff
But even just it's just like just the entire fandom, like they see these things, they read it, and like they just don't care. Like have they made some go ahead.
I've listened to the On Fire podcast. He's surrounded by yes men. Nobody's gonna tell Jeff that his ideas are bad. I just saw an article. Gabe Newell, for those of you who don't know, the man who's the CEO of Valve. Valve is, the creator of Half-Life, but also the creator of Steam. He realized that he can't be involved in making games anymore because no one will tell Gabe no. And then he can't be responsible for a game's quality if no one's checking him and saying, no, that's a bad idea. So he removed himself from that equation. Jeff, maybe follow suit. I don't know.
We love us our king,
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't get their obsession with these small groups.
Yeah, it's just bad.
It's more interesting when it's a bigger group and more stuff can happen.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I got a little fired up there. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't think that any of us disagree. Like the small groups are boring. That it's very limited in terms of what can happen. It's often very obvious who the target is going to be and very limited room to maneuver. Like I saw somebody, a quote, I can't remember if it was on Twitter or Blue Sky or Reddit or where it was, but there was somebody who said that Jeff likes the small groups because there's nowhere to hide, but realistically in the small groups, there's nowhere to play, right? There's just,
that's a great point.
There's just no room to maneuver or play or anything like that. Whereas with a big group, there are so many options that it opens up so many more doors for interesting gameplay. So
I can literally count on one hand the number of times where one of these twists was actually interesting. Really the only one that I can think of off the top of my head is Katora, whether or not she was going to flip and go with Caleb and Jake. That's it. Those
Well, that was also kind of manufactured.
Right. Yeah. Before the episode, it was interesting.
Yes.
Every other time, it's just obviously this is who's going to go. From the second you draw rocks, you might as well just let this person, see the door. And Genevieve even said it. When she drew the rock, she knew that it was over unless she won that challenge.
Yeah, I'm trying to find her exact quote of I think Entertainment Weekly asked her what her reaction was to the Blood Moon twist, and when she saw the tribe that she was going to be going to tribal council with, she said, I look down at the color of my rock, I look at the other people's rocks around me, and I look up and see Aubrey looking at me just smirking. So I think Genevieve knew she was done for. Hey, at least we had a shot in the dark played when they should have played it.
True.
That is always something to applaud, even if it is incredibly rare that we get an actual "you are safe."
I did when she played it. I did give a little yes, let's go, and then it was not safe, and I was like, oh
wow. I guess I don't want to. I have my thoughts on Coach, but I guess my final thought on Genevieve really is she is someone that I completely understand if she doesn't want to play again, because I think her first outing, I think it didn't sit too well with her. I think mentally and emotionally, to kind of how the game she played, the way she was perceived, and clearly she came into this season with huge expectations for herself. And I just think to have the game completely ripped away from you, to look at when you look at on paper of where she was sitting, where she was locked in with Kyle, who we all agree Kyle was playing very good to start. She was locked in with Kyle. She was locked in with Q. She was locked in with Colby and Steph. Colby loses his vote. Q loses his vote, right? Kyle goes out on Medivac. She finds 2 idols. She loses 2 idols. And she's stuck with Aubrey 3 straight swaps. Literally, I cannot think of anybody else that had a worse time if you're not counting people getting parasites and burning their hands and all that, like while they're actively on an island, I don't think you could have a worse time and worse luck than that. So
yeah, in the new era, before it was Justin for me. Shout out to him again. But yeah, now it's Genevieve.
Yeah, and we calculated the odds for Justin, and it was very, very low. But I do think that like still even more things went wrong for Genevieve.
It was literally every single time there was like goes one way or another. One way is good for Genevieve, one way is bad. It went bad every time. It's crazy.
Yep, it's just it sucks. I hope we see
that be
Genevieve
in D&D terms. Or
yes, it's like that's called a critical fail.
Critical fail. Yeah. Just 5 in a row.
Or it's having a DM that does not want you to succeed. Too.
Yeah, they put like an SR-15 monster in you when you're like level 6 or something.
Yeah. Where you need to roll a 28 wisdom to not take 100 damage. That is what just happened to Genevieve. Mm-hmm. It sucks. We all love Genevieve. That's the big thing about this. We all love Colby because Colby's just an OG. Colby is one of, in terms of top 10 players.
Australia was a Spare Monday buff.
Impacts to the game. My Here's vs. Villains buff is going to be here for that watch party. I am wearing it.
Yes.
See Colby, Camilla, who we all were super high on and loved, and then Jen, who I think we were all, obviously Ben, you took her first. I think Brian or myself are going to take her top 2 rounds no matter what. Very unfortunate. Sucks. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, and Camilla's one of my favorite players of the last few years too. So I was disappointed, not just because she's on my team, but just because I really enjoy her on the show.
Yeah. And she also went out pretty quiet. Like there was a lot of this felt more like a Tiffany versus Chrissy kind of scenario with Jonathan in the middle, and like there were elements of Camilla, and like obviously Camilla got a lot of focus last week in terms of the show kind of painting her as a swing vote, even if she wasn't necessarily really a swing vote. Really like not. We didn't get a ton at all from Camilla this season, which is disappointing because a lot of the confessionals that we got in 48 from her, especially, were top notch, and obviously like one of the probably top 10 to 15 players in the new era. So really disappointing.
Yep.
I am not quite burning down the house though for Genevieve and Camilla. I was about to throw up last night when I saw where Coach ended up with the tribe. Not only that, I was going to throw up when I saw that if he had just hung on for probably about 30 seconds more, he would have beat D and had immunity potentially. Once again, shout out D. I think we can spend more time on D in another episode because I think she's going to get far more highlight coming up. It's kind of like the consensus, at least I think, right? If D wins this season, she's instantly in like GOAT talk, or at the very least, she is in the Mount Rushmore discussion.
She's in the conversation for sure. We'll have a talk. If D wins the season, we'll for sure have a talk if she's where she kind of ranks.
For me, D has set herself up just by circumstances of whatever has happened with Kyle and Savannah. She is the best player of the new era based on how she's navigated this season so far. I am very, very impressed by D. I am rooting for her to go very far. Once again, I'm not rooting for anybody to win this season more than I'm rooting for a coach to win this season. I've said from the very jump, getting a 2-time winner to win this season and seeing that live would be great for Survivor. It would be really fun to watch. D is very impressive. I think that we'll be talking about D for a couple more weeks, so I don't want to spend too much time on her, but D has really impressed me a lot.
Yeah. Best winner of the new era. Like, she's just awesome. Really big fan of hers.
I put an asterisk because Kyle getting medevaced, and then I put an
asterisk. That's fair.
Savannah had pretty horrible odds stacked against her. But we all agreed D was probably potentially the number 1 target heading into the season, and she's set herself up really well.
I thought she was completely dead in the water.
Yeah. So very impressive. It feels very not vindicating because it's not like we were some sort of like huge like D truthers. Like I think everybody knew D was a good winner. It's just it's nice to see that wasn't a fluke, that D is that good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, she made the jury. Like, that's great,
Yeah. I've been extremely, vocal. I think, even when after 48, when we were having the like D versus Kyle discussion, I was like pretty firmly on the D is the best player of the new era side of the argument. I love Kyle too. I think Kyle also demonstrated, like, I think he comes out of the season with his stock having improved, even though he went out in episode 1. Just because of how well positioned he seemed to have been. Although, given how ill-fated that alliance ends up being, maybe wouldn't have ended up working out for him. Maybe it's probably best for the best that he went out and for his legacy. But yeah, no, D is phenomenal. Like, she's, we even see like in the interaction with Coach, where Coach says the joke with the foot in the mouth and all that, right? Like Coach is like, yeah, I kind of forgot that like D is like a really good player, and I can't do shit like this with her.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
I guess to finally get on to Coach, to wrap this up. Coach thing, one of two things. I've said to myself from the start, Coach would not be high on this season unless he goes far, and Coach has been nothing but praising the season, saying it's the best season ever. We had the whole NDA thing. Coach doesn't sign NDAs. Coach does his own thing. Coach has been very happy, been very spunky since this kind of watching him on social media since the season came out. He posted a little bit of a ha he April Fool's, saying that goodbye to his survivor career. I saw it after the episode aired. Thank God. First mishap of Coach this season, which I feel like he's gotten a very strong edit from the little that we've seen of him to this point. With D, I feel like it was very with him. I forget exactly what he said. I forget what he said to D to do the whole foot in the mouth thing.
He said that Emily had told him either the night before or earlier in the morning, I can't remember the timeline, that like D was her number one target coming into the merge. Which I presume is just him lying, right? I that feels like he just made it up, especially given like Emily and Dee's relationship. I can think of at least like 3 or 4 people that even if like Emily thinks D is a threat, like Emily would probably want to target before D. So it kind of just feels like Coach saw an opening. He was like, I need to flip D on Emily here. This is my only out to save me and Colby. Let me make this up that Emily was targeting her, tell her, and then realize a little too late that one, like D is one of the best players in the last like decade the show has seen, and 2, D and Emily literally played together and are friends outside of the show. So it seems it's just kind of an unbelievable lie. Yeah.
Well, he was man enough to say, hey, that was a mistake. I can't have that happen again, which I thought was like, it's not an edit we normally get from Coach, admitting what he did was a mistake and what he did was dumb. So that made me feel like we were getting like, oh, this is, Coach he's on his game. When we were kind of getting up to tribal, though, I thought there was legitimately a chance he's going to go home, which that would have been a circumstance of layout of the tribe swap. It's just, I think the talk, though, between D and Suri, kind of talking about how he's not like respected. He's not running the old school tribe. It does, and he's not that big of a threat. It does not make me feel very good for his outlook for the rest of the game. I need to try to make sense of, and I know you can't always go back and say, I need to read the edit to kind of figure out what they're trying to go with for Coach. But I feel like he had such a positive edit before we got to this point. And then with everything that happened in this episode, he's kind of on the exact opposite end of that side now, where I actually generally felt pretty good that Coach had a chance to win this season up until this point. In this episode now, I actually feel very, very nervous for Coach's outlook for the rest of the season. It's given me 2 different experiences. One, I'm watching this like it's a WWE event where, well, that's not fair. I'm watching this like a sporting event that is not scripted, where I think I am every single episode from here on out. I'm going to be so nervous for Coach and Coach's allies, and kind of where he goes from here. It adds like an extra element of adrenaline to watching the episodes, which is a lot of fun. But at the same time, I feel like my entire outlook of this season is riding on what happens with Coach, and that's tough, because I do think that this has been a very good season. If Coach had gone out last night, I would have been very, very, very sad on this episode. I really would not be talking this much. So some of the viewers would probably wish Coach went out, so I didn't ramble as much as I did. But I don't feel great about Coach from this point forward. I am very nervous, even just next week alone, that we're going to be sitting here talking about Coach going out. I just really hope that's not the case, because like I said, I feel like he got such a strong edit at the start, and like there has to be a reason for that. I don't feel good. I don't feel good about Coach's spot in the game right now.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think the game's fluid. I think there's a line in the sand, but I think eventually people are going to start playing, more self-interestedly. And like Ben said, there probably will be a couple of boots that are pretty obvious, but I'm not sure Coach is necessarily going to be one of the people who get kicked off before the, real war starts,
Yeah, I think that the obvious consensus boots for me are, I would say, Jonathan, Joe, Steph. 2 out of the 3 of those are probably going to be the next 2 boots in my mind. And then that would give like a Chrissy and a Coach kind of room to kind of play when this bigger group inevitably fractures down the obvious lines in the middle. Once they've like moved the game a little bit forward. That's like my prediction right now. Obviously, this is just kind of like my analysis and prediction. But I agree with Dylan's worry. I don't think Coach is winning the season. I think he'll probably be a pretty major strategic player in the post-merge. I think he's going to be like a probably go deep. I could see him top 7-6, but like I don't think he's winning at this point. I said that I had 6 people on my list right now that I think can win the season, and that would be Christian, Rick, Suri, Ozzy, Rizzo, D. Those are my 6. I think that one of those 6 is the winner.
I would prefer you just lied to me there, Ben. Now I'm going to have to.
I mean, look, those 6. I would say like 4 or 5 out of those 6 would, winning. Is not something I expected coming into the season. It would be really fucking insane. So
I don't feel comfortable limiting it down to a 6 yet. I think that we've seen in other seasons too, really anything could happen, especially with recent New Era seasons. So I don't feel comfortable limiting it down to a 6. I feel comfortable with the 6 you said, though, to include them in who I think. Is there anybody who I realistically think doesn't have a chance of winning? I think Tiffany really needs to turn her game around and kind of being more than a piece. I think she needs to start driving some of these. Chrissy would be pretty surprising to me right now, for the most part. I think to kind of see they go from, at least from what we saw from her before to now. Jonathan, I sort of similar to what you said about Coach. I think Jonathan can go very far in this game, but I don't know if Jonathan has a winning capability. I don't know if Emily has a winning capability in her at this point for what we've seen from her in this game. Even like Aubrey, like something about Aubrey, I feel like we need, if there is more to Aubrey than just the Genevieve stuff, I feel like that could potentially put her further in the game. I don't know if I can say for sure anyone right now I feel like has 0 chance. Unfortunately for Tiffany, though, based on the edit we've gotten from her up until this point, and kind of like where she's been in the game and what she's doing in the game, I have a hard time imagining that she's going to win if she stays on this course, but maybe she can turn it on and kind of like get a little cutthroat and start making some huge moves. But obviously that can be very dangerous if you don't time that correctly. So that's something that we need to kind of wait and see. But I really hope you're wrong about Coach. I hope Coach kind of, I hope that we get which I think I can still have a satisfactory ending to the season if Coach doesn't win. It's just, I think we have a situation where Coach doesn't win, Suri goes out in fire making, and we kind of get down to that. I think then, I get a little upset, and then I'm going to start losing my mind a little bit.
I'd really prefer Suri to not be in fire making again.
Well, I mean, luckily, one of her, arguably her closest ally right now, just literally lost in firemaking about 3 weeks before the season. So
It's true, but so did she.
So did she, but that means that it's an even playing field,
Yeah.
That means that, we might get a situation where it's a 50-50 between Suri and Rizzo in the Final Four. Who can make fire to win the season? Who's going to redeem themselves from the season they played earlier in the same year?
Will it be longer than the Cook Islands fire making?
Stay tuned.
See.
Yeah.
I think there would be an element added to the game for the first time, which would be gasoline. I think that they would run out of matches. Gasoline.
Not even matches. Straight up gasoline.
Yeah. We might not even get fire making either. I might get a regular vote and it could be a 3-1,
Yeah, I somehow doubt that.
Yeah.
The fans definitely voted for fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I hope that it's not forced fire making, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. Well, anything else before we get out of here?
No, hour and a half. I think there was that much to talk about. Honestly, I know I rambled quite a bit, but I think that this was the most impactful episode to this season, obviously, for certain reasons. Things got very real very fast. This episode was knocked down the reality that this is not all sunshine and rainbows over here with this game, that this got very real very quick, and we're still playing Survivor. So outside of the flaws with production and losing votes and the tribe swaps and all that, I still think that this was just a very, very good episode of Survivor. I was on the edge of my seat a majority of the time. People are miserable. People online saying Survivor's dead completely. Worst episode ever. Nope. I think this was very good, and I think people are going to look back on this being very good. And I think that hopefully we're shaping up for a very, very good post-merge. But that remains to be seen, but it feels like that. So, no, very excited. Got the Survivor watch party coming up. I'm excited for that. I'm going to have my heroes versus villains buffs ready for that. I'm going to wear to it. So hopefully I'll record some content there, but just keep following us here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ben, anything you want to plug or promote?
No, yeah, I agree. I despite the issues I have with the twist and with kind of the outcome, obviously sad to see all three of the players go. Still very high in the season. Next week looks like it's shaping up to be really compelling. And there's a lot of kind of moving parts to, for where the season can go from here. A lot of really interesting players still playing really hard. So yeah, still very excited to see where the season goes. It's still, I'm still very high on it, despite some of the issues. And yeah, been really excited to continue to watch House of Villains season 3 and Extracted. The Extracted season 2 finale is, next Monday. So I've been enjoying that more than I thought I would. So yeah.
Cool. Well, Daryl, Brent, everyone in the chat, thank you so much for stopping by. Other than that, check out the main channel, Wicked Everything. I just put a new video out today about if Warhorse Studios is the right studio to make a Lord of the Rings game, as has been rumored. So you can definitely check that out if you're into video games. We also have Those Fake Nerds, where we cover nerd and pop culture news, and Wicked Sports, where we cover sports news. Thank you so much for checking this one out, and we will see you in the next one.